If you are a veteran or a service member and you are confused by the VA disability process, don't worry, you're not alone. In this video, I'm going to break down a step-by-step guide of understanding this process, where to begin, and what it looks like as a just very base level roadmap for you to try to follow. Hi, my name is Ethan Wright. I'm the owner and operator of Veteran Benefits Blueprints. I run this channel and I'm trying to help veterans understand the VA claims process so they can win their benefits that they deserve. So if you're new here, please subscribe. I'm going to have free information, tips, and tricks on this channel, but right now let's jump into this video. So step one in this process of the VA claims is understanding if you are actually eligible for VA disability claims. So there's really two things to become eligible for VA claims, and one of them is serving in the military in some capacity and being able to have a discharge and showing that paperwork, and the other one is to have a diagnosed condition that you are trying to link to service. Yes, there's a lot more to this, I understand, but those are the two biggest things that we need to focus on within understanding if you are actually eligible. So if you believe that this current condition that you have, a diagnosed illness or ailment, is linked to service, then you might be in this category of being eligible. Of course, you need to have a DD-214, be leaving the military or out of the military and in the VA's actual system at this point. However, really after that, you can actually file your claim on your own or get somebody to help you if you are eligible. So for example, if you have back problems from the military, but you don't say anything about it for 10 years after the military, the VA has the right to say, hey, we don't think this is service connected, therefore you're probably not eligible for claiming this exact ailment. But this doesn't mean it has to be linked directly to service. It can actually be linked to another condition that you want to claim on, called a secondary condition. So there are a few ways to make sure that you're eligible and start this process. I have, of course, a blueprint course with like 6 hours of modules that really breaks this down if you want to check it out in the description. But right now let's go on to step two, which is gathering evidence. So at this point you've served, you are a veteran, now you have a current condition, you know that you can link it together. What is the evidence that you need to gather and what do you do from that point on? So there's a lot of different documentation that is considered evidence, but let's start with the first one, which is a doctor's letter or a nexus. There's two things. There's a nexus, which is you going to the doctor during service and them showing that this was from service. Naturally, they don't have to actually write this down because you are working in the military. And then there's a nexus, a letter that is maybe after the military service or your primary care that says more likely than not, or at least as likely than not, that little phrase in writing in that letter saying this came from their service time. So those are signed by either a specialty doctor or an MD. Those are the most powerful ways to do this. However, it's not always necessary. And that goes on to the next step, which is having lay statements, which includes personal statements and buddy letters. So personal statements are connected to every ailment or condition that you want to claim. You should write out a personal statement for each one. On top of that, you should get a buddy letter from either a spouse that knows you, somebody from work, or somebody that you serve with that can actually look from a different viewpoint and say, I've seen how this ailment affects this person, and I'm gonna write my experience with them and showcase this to the VA. Having a nexus is critical for winning a VA claim. Having this lay statements, these personal statements, and buddy letters really back and support this. But then there's one more thing that you can do. You can and should actually document and log any of these conditions that bother you regularly. So for me, in my case, I actually logged a year's worth of migraines every time I had one on an app, and I printed that out as a PDF, packaged that up, and sent that in as evidence as well. So what that shows the VA is this constant issue that does bother you. You are keeping track of it, and if that aligns with the rest of your evidence, it's really good supporting documentation to have. Okay, so now that you understand what evidence is, let's go on to step three, which is initiating a claim. Yes, I use the words initiating claim, not filing a claim to completion, because there's a very specific reason. So when you initiate a claim, you go to va.gov, you start the process, but you actually don't submit all the stuff for your claim. But it does, however, start your timer. That starts the timer of when your claim will be finished, when they will back pay you to that date. So you can actually initiate a claim and start this process without having all of your evidence, but then you should understand what you really need. You have a whole year to figure this out. I hope, and I would assume that most people try to do this in the first few months, because if you miss out on the whole year window, you're gonna have to start again. Great, so you can start and initiate a claim. You can download my course and learn everything that you need to know and get it all done within 1 year. And lastly, step four is gonna be actually submitting the claim and finishing this thing out. So at this point, you've learned a lot from my channel. You've gathered all your evidence, you're attaching it, you're submitting it online at va.gov off of the initial claim you started, and you're gonna click the submit button, and that will kick off the next part of this process. So yes, you're not actually closing anything out. You're not done at this point, but this will initiate the CMP exam, which is you being analyzed by a contractor from the VA that they will look over your packet, write up some information about you, and submit that to get your rating for your claims. As long as your evidence is within one window, these CMP exams can be after, and everything is going to be backdated from the initiation of the claim that you started, which is great. So the VA is not all bad if you do this part correctly. They might deny your claim still because maybe there isn't truly enough evidence. There's a lot of common mistakes that veterans have that they don't really think about. So the biggest one is submitting an incomplete packet and not understanding what evidence you actually need. Of course, this is big because if you're missing links in your evidence, that's missing parts of the story that the VA raters are going to look at and say, we don't really know when this happened, or we don't know how much it's progressed, or hell, there's not even a diagnosis for it, but he's trying to say there is. how can they actually give you that claim, analyze it correctly if you don't have all your evidence? And then probably the next thing close second to this is actually missing deadlines. So we just talked about the importance of that 1-year window, but after you get your claim and your rating back, what do you do from there is you can go into the appeals process, and there might be steps that you need to do if you don't agree with your rating. And lastly, besides for doing your due diligence, maybe you do take my course, maybe you watch my YouTube channel, you should get help when you need it. So these VSOs should help you, and I'm not going to say that every single person is going to be perfect to be able to help your claim, but they are accredited and a free resource. It's always smart to understand what to ask a VSO if you've been educated, and learning the steps of this process is critical because then you know what to ask for. So don't go to a VSO not having anything on your paperwork, not doing any research. It's critical that you really understand this process, because when you go in there, you know what to look for, you know how they can help you, and you're able to start this process as much as you can and build this case correctly. And with that, that's a simple crash course guide on a step-by-step process on what to do to get your VA claim started. But like I said before, I do have a course that explains this in depth in the description. And again, thank you for supporting this channel. I hope that everybody has a great day. Make sure you win your claims, learn, educate yourself. That's the best thing that you can do. And I'll see you next time.